In the 1920s, James and Lynetta Jones had owned a small farm in Crete, Indiana. But when the Depression started, they lost their land because they could not pay the mortgage. Without the farm, and because of her husband's disability from World War I, Lynetta went to work full-time in local canneries and factories near Crete. She had become the family's sole breadwinner. On May 13th, 1931, in this two-story house in Crete, a black-haired baby boy was born to Lynetta and James. They named their son James Warren Jones. James Warren Jones would be their only child, and from the day he was born, his life would never be easy. In 1934, the Jones family moved 3 miles up the road to the small, quiet town of Lynn, Indiana, about 80 miles east of Indianapolis. The Jones' new home was in the poor section next to the railroad tracks. As a youngster, Jim often wandered the streets of Lynn, alone and without supervision. Fortunately, he came under the wing of a next-door neighbor, Mrs. Myrtle Kennedy, a devout, church-going woman. She became his surrogate mother and introduced the young Jim Jones to church. In church, he found the warmth and love that had been missing in his cold, indifferent home.
We had what we called the Holy Roller Church out in the west end of town. It was where they shouted and ran up and down the aisles and got caught up in the spirit, and it would get pretty wild sometimes.
By the time Jim was 10, he was conducting his own church services in front of boys and girls in the neighborhood. In the fall of 1948, his mother had left his father for another man when Jim was only 16. They moved to nearby Richmond. Jim still did not have much family life, and religion took the place of what he did not have at home. He was seen carrying his Bible everywhere in the poor and black neighborhoods of Richmond, where he preached on street corners. His theme, racial equality. Blacks were surprised to hear those words from a white teenager, and they accepted him at his word. At times, he drew crowds of 25 to 30 people, and he started honing what would become the formidable skills of a preacher. Jim needed money to live, and he worked as an orderly at Reed Memorial Hospital in Richmond.
Excellent worker for the hospital. The hospital just thought he was tops.
Jim graduated early from Richmond High School with honors in the winter of 1948. At 17, he entered Indiana University in Bloomington. 6 months later, in June 1949, in Richmond's Trinity United Methodist Church, the 18-year-old Jim Jones married the 22-year-old Marcelin Baldwin. Jim and Marcelin moved to Indianapolis in 1951 to continue his studies at the downtown campus of Indiana University. At this point, he had no idea what he wanted to do with his life.
Sundown Towns, a hidden dimension of segregation in America, by James W. Loewen.
A Whitestown man is now facing charges for allegedly shooting and killing Maria Florinda Ríos Pérez, a cleaning worker who showed up to the wrong house and tried to open Kurt Anderson's front door. Anderson has now been charged with voluntary manslaughter. The Boone County prosecutor says the case does not meet Indiana's stand your ground protections. Anderson's lawyer, though, says they're disappointed by the charges and believe Anderson was justified in self-defense.
This is such an unusual case with a lot of legal questions surrounding it. Joining us to help us understand it is Professor Courtney Benson-Coy, who teaches at the IU McKinney School of Law's Legal Defense Clinic. Thanks for being here.
Thank you for having me.
All right, so the homeowner has been charged with voluntary manslaughter. That's obviously different than murder, but can you explain kind of the difference?
Sure. So murder is a knowing and intentional killing of another human being. Voluntary manslaughter has an additional element of sudden heat. And so what we have here is murder plus sudden heat. And in Indiana law, fear or terror can be described as sudden heat. And so that's where they're coming from with the charging decision.
The defense attorney mentioned the castle doctrine or the stand your ground law that we have heard about. How will that play into their case that they're making?
I think that's going to be huge in their case. But I will say the castle doctrine does have two different components. A personal component, does the jury believe that the person was in fear at the time? But there's a separate component that also has to be met, which is, would a reasonable person also have been and fear at the same time.
So this is going to be a tough case, you think, for the prosecution and the defense, both of them?
I think so. This is just a tough case all the way around.
Okay. Professor Benson Coy, thank you.
Thank you.
Now, I'm so glad that I found Jim Jones in time. I'm so glad I found Jim Jones in time. I'm so glad that I found Jim Jones in time. Oh my God, what shall I do? I'm so glad trouble don't last always.
Jim Jones. Gus T, renegade, the worthless Negro. I'll leave it there deliberately. Woo. In for another broadcast, hopefully to share constructive information with non-white people, victims of white supremacy. Individuals classified as white do not need to listen to the cows. Today's date, Tuesday, December 9, 2025. So I have been told. First and foremost, today's broadcast, we are here because of the shooting death of Maria Florinda Ríos Pérez, just killed a few weeks back in Whitestown, Indiana. Mother of 4, migrated from Guatemala, non-white female, shot through the door by a 62-year-old white man who they didn't even identify, much less charge, for over a week. And they finally got around. Curtis Anderson, now charged. We'll see what happens with the trial. He said he was afraid. More cowardly white man. So I gotta bang, 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 get my gun and shoot a non-white female who was coming to clean, the housekeeper, and she just went to the wrong address. Broad daylight. In Whitestown, Indiana. Now, Gus T paid attention immediately as soon as I heard the name Whitestown, Indiana. I said, hey, we read in the Catherine Massey book club, in my top 5, begrudgingly, we read James Loewen's Sundown Towns. A hidden dimension of segregation in America. That, not the best term, but either way, we read that book in our book club years ago, and I cite that book about once per week. A news report where something takes place, a black person gets killed or something, and it's up. Or we talk to a guest. Up, where are you from? Up, they have the signs up, no Nick. Wow, that is such an important book for so many reasons. And even Whitestown is mentioned in that book specifically. But I went, when that event happened, I went and read that portion from the book, and then I started going to do research to see if there's more information. I think that is such important context for this event in a town where they have deliberately, really in a town and a state, Indiana, where they have deliberately, there is people classified as white, have deliberately restricted, forbidden access to black people, and then have an event like this happen, a white man to say, oh, I'm so afraid they were coming to get me. This being a racially restricted region is important context for where this happened. Might even be important context when they get to the jury pool. You know, they say you're supposed to be judged by a jury of your peers. how many non-white people do you think live in Whitestown, Indiana? I went to see if I could find a guest to help us learn about the context for this event, the shooting of Maria Florinda Ríos Pérez, non-white female mother of 4, as this trial evolves over probably into next year and such. The report that I found that we are going to discuss today, fascinating for so many reasons, but this, like many other times where we've had guests on our program, and wow, it is like walking down memory lane for anybody comes to say, look at here, Gus T, worthless Negro Gus T, what have you done for your nigh on 17 years of counter-racist broadcasting? What have you done? Say, well, let's see. Folks that are referenced in the report we're going to talk about today, which I think gives a lot of great information about what it means to be classified as white. She cites James H. Madison. He was a guest on our program talking about the history of the robust history of the Ku Klux Klan in the state of Indiana, not in the South. We had Dr. Nell Irvin Painter as a guest on the program, although she's done a lot of great work. We specifically had her as a guest to talk about her book, The History of White People. Cowbell there too, importantly. Woo. Anyway, we had Dr. Joe Fegan as a guest on the program. Now, people frequently cite as our guest today he's done a lot of work, but they'll cite his work on the white racial frame, which is important, but I think what is more important is two-faced racism, how white people lie publicly so they don't say anything racist. We even got some of that in the dissertation we'll discuss today, but once they get private, oh man, he even has that whole section about racist jokes, which comes up in the report today too. But Dr. Joe Fegan, guest on the program as well, and one of the books that I cite frequently, not as much as Sundown Towns, but I cite this book a lot. Elliot Jaspin, Buried in the Bitter Waters. Oh man, why do I cite that book? When he came on this platform and he said, this is a white man, he said, whew, Brother Gus, I've looked at the census records and there have been at least 260 racial purges of black people in this part of the world, at least 260, and it's probably way more than that. That's just the evidence data that I can prove at this point. And he said, what are the ramifications? It's not just Rosewood. It's not just Tulsa and Black Wall Street. This is over and over. Wilmington, 1898. We just talked about that, where you got black people where their grandparents and parents grew up in Wilmington, North Carolina, and don't even know about what happened there. This is not a one-time thing. This is at least 260 times thing where whites just said, we're done. No more Negroes are going to live in this part of Indiana. Yeah. And they drive them all out, kill a bunch of them, have a grand party doing so, and then pretend that this never happened and they all forgot about it. 260 times some of these events in Indiana. But Elliot Jaspin was a guest on the Cows as well. And again, now James Loewen wasn't a guest, but I mean, man, we read that entire book unabridged, cover to cover. Whew. So important. So If you've heard all that, great. If you haven't, go to the archives. Our guest today, she cites all of these people's work and more. So for me, it was, wow. And then with the background of Maria Florinda Ríos Pérez. The report, again, that we're discussing, her 2019 dissertation, Mapping Whiteness, Uncovering the Legacy of All White Towns in Indiana. All white towns like Whitestown. So I have to pause before I can bring her the audio that we heard. We did get the audio segment about the unfortunate shooting death of Miss Pérez. Before that, we heard about mass murderer, Indiana native, the Reverend Jim Jones. We just passed 48 years from the massacre in Guyana, South America. But man, that should be in your brain computer as well. Those two books, Sundown Towns, James Loewen, Michael Mayer's Was Jonestown a CIA medical experiment? Because all of that, 911 victims, most of them black, many of them black children, all of that before they got to Guyana, which is kind of like a colony, all of that started in Indiana. And that is so important because they said, man, we had folks who said they didn't think Jim Jones was racist until, Jim Jones' father was a member of the Klan in Indiana. They said, what? He was a what? Who? Really? What? That's where all of that with Jonestown started. Indiana. Our guest for today's broadcast, if I got it right, she traveled across the pond from Germany to Indiana to study white identity, all white towns. I find that fascinating for so many reasons. Hopefully this broadcast will do Dr. Frances Cress Welsing justice, joining us live to discuss her fascinating and informative 2019 dissertation, Mapping Whiteness. Joining us live from Germany, Ph.D. Jennifer Sdunzik. Let's see. Are you with us? Can you hear us? Okay.
Yes. Hi, Gus. Can you hear me?
Crystal clear. Let me make sure. Can you pronounce your name so we can say it correctly, please, ma'am?
Jennifer Sdunzik.
One more time, please.
Jennifer Sdunzik.
Sdunzik. Wow, I was way off.
Yeah, that was great.
Sdunzik. Okay, Sdunzik. Awesome. Thank you so much for sharing. I guess since we have a massive time difference here. So for her, she's joining us from Germany. We're here, West Coast, U.S., so 9-hour time difference that we're navigating while we're on much earlier. But once you hear some of the details from her work, well worth it. For listeners, I'm sure, at least our side, or maybe other parts of the world too, I'm sure this is, for some folks, their first time hearing about your work. If briefly you could tell us, I guess, a little bit about the work that you do over in Germany.
I actually still work, I guess I'm wearing multiple hats beyond writing about racist places like Indiana and the like, right? But I'm actually still working in Indiana. I'm doing primarily evaluation and research on a variety of issues. Most of the fields that I'm touching upon are the taboo words that you nowadays don't talk about anymore, like diversity, equity, inclusion related. but on an international scale, not just K through 16 within the U.S., but also beyond the U.S. borders.
Fascinating. For folks who have not seen you, see, that was part of my confusion. I thought she was still physically in Indiana, so I thought it was a much easier time zone thing to navigate, but I was tricked again. For folks who have not seen you, I guess you were born in Germany, is that correct?
Yes, that's correct.
Okay. That superb English.
I was actually born behind the Iron Curtain, if that says anything.
Wow. Fascinating. Get a little bit of our...
Did you?
I did not. I was thinking you were in Indiana, so I was confused, way off from the beginning. So, yeah, I'm still learning. I guess for folks who've not seen you, born in Germany, are you classified as a white woman?
Yes, I am a white female, former East German, I guess, born in East Germany, now reunited Germany, obviously. But yes, I am a white woman. I'm perceived as white. I learned what it means to be white living in the US for a long period of time, just because that's what the US goes by, right?
Oh, I'm no expert on German history, East, West, unification, none of that. But I do know one fella in Germany who, matter of fact, I was at the Seattle International Film Festival this summer, and one of the best films I saw was Riefenstahl. Do you know the filmmaker Leni Riefenstahl? Is that name familiar to you?
Yeah.
Oh, man. Do you know what that film was about? It's a documentary.
I've not watched it, actually, so feel free to share with your listeners.
Oh, I told them, but I have no problem telling again because it's one of the best that I saw out of dozens of films. Riefenstahl, the documentary. It is in German, so it's subtitled, but Leni Riefenstahl, like our guest today, is a white female born in Germany, but she was a filmmaker in the mid 1900s, 20th century. And so World War II comes, how we get to East and West Germany. World War II comes, and that fella, Adolf, comes along. And so they're going to have the Olympics in Germany, in Berlin, 1936. Leni Riefenstahl does the video for it's the Olympics. It's a big deal. So Leni Riefenstahl does this documentary about the Olympics and the white, superior, Aryan athlete. She sneaks a few frames of Jesse Owens in there, but most of it is, Aryan supremacy and blah, 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 all this. And so most of the film centers around Leni Riefenstahl, white woman filmmaker, saying, I am not a racist. I'm not a Nazi. What Hitler did was really bad, but no way. I'm not a racist. What the young people here say, Dr. Sdunzik, they proceed for 2 hours to drop receipts on Leni Riefenstahl. They show her with pictures. They show with pictures Hitler sent Leni Riefenstahl flowers on his birthday. And she has a scarf on with the swastika. It is amazing. It shows her wrestling with black children in the Sudan. This is way later in life, but oh my God, woo. She gets into it. They show her arguing with a white woman who was born in Germany because they take that same tired line that white people all over the universe say, oh man, I didn't know nothing about no racism. What? Oh man, I was ignorant. I didn't know nothing about what no Adolf Hitler was. I can't even spell Adolf. And they brought a white woman on who was born at the same time, said that is total nonsense. I was there. That's total rubbish to sit here and say that you didn't know nothing. And I'm white. You're white. Please. And this is on a German talk. Oh, it is amazing. Easily Absolutely. One of the best five films that I saw at the Seattle International Film Festival. Riefenstahl. If you get a chance to see it, smoking.
Oh, I will.
Global system of racism. But all of that segue to, I could have went lots of Mein Kampf, lots of different routes, but that's more current, the film. All of that to say, the United States is not the only place in the world where they have racial classifications where they would classify you as white. And I'm pretty sure you being born in Germany, you knew you were classified as a white woman well before you got to Indiana. Is that true?
Oh, absolutely.
Okay.
Certainly.
Just making sure. Trying to pull a slip
Oh,
one
yeah,
on us.
absolutely.
Okay. But this program, all of our guests that we talk to anywhere in the world, we make sure to get our definition for racism down immediately. I use the term racism and white supremacy as synonyms. I use the same definition for both terms. That definition, a global system of people who classify themselves as white and are dedicated to abusing and or subjugating everyone in the known universe whom they classify as not white. Do you think such a system exists? Do you think that definition is accurate?
That was, I think, pretty on point. I really like that.
Wow. Okay. Succinct. We don't get that too often from our white guests or non-white guests. Great. Okay.
I mean, I think that the key word in the definition that you just had was system, right? The system that enables those who classify as white to subjugate non-white individuals. So I think I don't use as many words as you just did in the classroom when I try to break it down for students and the like. I just say racism is prejudice plus power. And power for me, in your definition, was that systematic nature that you just so eloquently, the way you eloquently put it. So that means you do this kind of broadcast all the time and have thought about a nice way, a succinct way actually, to define white supremacy or racism.
White supremacy, racism, same thing. Same thing, synonyms. And I do just want to point out for listeners, because system is very important, but for me, it's system of people, because so consistently white people talk as though the system is something other than themselves, meaning individuals like you, Dr. Sdunzik, they'll say it's laws, or they'll say that it's customs and legacy. They'll pull out old garbage, lying language, vestiges, and just nonsense where it's, wait a minute, none of this would be possible if you did not have people classified as white who are dedicated to maintaining this system of power in all areas of people activity. That's how it's there. If it was just, whatever, computers running things or what have you, computers break down. All of that stuff, just the time it would have eroded. You have to have white people refining and maintaining, expanding all of this, living, breathing white people. That is the system. And I found that people are very resistant to talking about racism as, it is white people. Racism is something that white people do, practice, meaning they refine and get better at it with time. People are very resistant to that, and that's why I put that in my definition, because I think it is substantially more, because power and prejudice, it would have to be implied that it's white people, and I think we need to be very specific, because it's so frequent. People say that I'm racist and Jesse Owens is racist. Let's be precise. Racism is something that white people practice against people they say are not white all over the world. That is very important to be precise about that. If that's accurate, and it seems we agree, is that accurate?
100%.
Right on. So I guess did you hear about this case in Whitestown, Indiana? Maria Florinda Ríos Pérez, non-white female, who was shot and killed by a white man, Curtis Anderson, shot through the door?
Yes, I did.
Okay. And did you have done work? We'll get to mapping whiteness, but just with your understanding of this place, what were your initial thoughts when you heard about this case in Whitestown?
Yet again, it's very unfortunate. I mean, first of all, my condolences to the Ríos Pérez family, obviously, but unfortunately, some things don't change, and I can't say that I was surprised that it happened. Neither of the act of murdering her nor the aftermath on how it was treated, how long it took before anyone was indicted. And I'm unfortunately also I want to be hopeful that something comes out of it, but with Indiana's Stand Your Ground law, I don't see justice in any form or fashion happening for the Ríos Pérez family. Without being a Debbie Downer right now, it's just when you've lived in Indiana for an extended period of time and you've studied it for an extended period of time, let's hope justice is coming, but I doubt it.
And have you been to Boone County? That's where Whitestown, Indiana is. Have you visited this place?
Yes. I mean, I've not been in Whitestown per se. I think on private matters, we've passed through it because from West Lafayette to Indianapolis, you automatically, you actually pass Whitestown, the exit, every time. And you just hope that you don't have to, you don't run out of gas or any of that sort, just because it runs some weird hairs up and down your spine, right?
Wait a minute. Pause yes. 1 second, please. Why would it be an anxiety-causing event for you? You are a white woman. If you were running out of gas or what have you, what trouble would you have going into Whitestown to get gas or even help if your car broke down?
Because usually I'm not by myself, but with other people of color. And so when we are like a group of 2 or a group of 3, right? It's just always an eerie feeling that you just, even as a white woman, like I guess when you're a white woman and you drive through it, you could hope and bank on the white female innocent element. If you can adopt the Midwestern nice, I guess, and just hope to get out of the situation without running your mouth too loudly and directly and straightforwardly, which Germans tend to do, unfortunately, and that gets you in trouble more often than you think.
I don't know. I read Mapping Whiteness. I don't remember. You went and talked to white people about racist jokes and purges of black people, and why didn't you include more information in the historical black project and all of this? And I don't remember you telling us, man, they bopped me upside my head and chased me out of town, and they put sugar in my gas tank and slashed my. I don't remember any of that. I don't remember any it got really hostile. And, I had to question if I had the courage. I don't remember any of that. Did anybody get nasty or rude with you in doing your research for Mapping Whiteness? Any white people specifically?
Pertaining to the research that I conducted with them, there were only a few incidents among my interlocutors that I wouldn't call anything in terms of physical danger, because it's similar to this conversation that happened over the phone, but it was very I don't even know how to frame it. I was grateful for anyone who talked to me, especially with this kind of research, right? But then I was just reduced to being that gal from East Germany. And let's dig out that German history. And what do you think about that? And, oh, Hitler was a great guy, don't you think? And let's talk about him, and all these kinds of random things that make you uncomfortable in one way or another. So kind of distracting from my research focus to make me the research subject on a topic completely unrelated. But it just throws you out of, it throws you a curveball, and you just need to handle it. But generally, physically, danger when I was in the field to conduct my research, less so. Not in Indiana per se. No.
Thank you for the detail there. Wow. Did you all hear that? They say Hitler was a great guy, and they wanted to sidetrack and talk about all of that. Come in the context of mapping whiteness. Amazing. That is one question that I had, even with Dr. Welsing kind of in my brain computer. As a white woman born in Germany, with all of the information and data that they have about Adolf Hitler and Mein Kampf and racial superiority and all of that, even though they do say, I've been told repeatedly that Adolf Hitler, they studied some components of the U.S. system of white supremacy racism, model some of what they did in Germany. Maybe that's true. I'm not sure. But why did you need to come all the way to Indiana to study racism, white supremacy? You couldn't have just stayed in Germany to study white supremacy?
That's a valid question, and yes and no. Is there enough research subject and material to study white supremacy within Germany? Absolutely. But just interest alone doesn't pay the bills, right? So when I completed my master's degree in American Studies, race conversations were not a thing in Germany. So getting any kind of funding or PhD pursuits in the humanities writ large was almost impossible. Plus, since my discipline was American Studies, I wanted to get one of my degrees in the U.S. And I initially came to study hate crimes and common denominators across different types of hate crimes. But then I actually met James Loewen, who came to Purdue at that time and talking about his research. And then he all of a sudden gave me language to explain what a lot of international students, people of color in small town Indiana, what we all collectively, individually, communally discussed and never really had language to put in. So I went from an abstract level of hate crimes to literally mapping it in a place. And then again, why Indiana? I mean, my research institution was in Indiana, and that was the easiest place to save money and dig up a lot of things that have been swept under the rug.
Wow. Thank you again for the detail. So am I to understand that you said you're passionate about hate crimes and studying racism, white supremacy, doesn't pay the bills, and this is something that maybe would not have been financially supported in Germany, but here in the States, even though you were not born in the States, you're a German citizen, but hey, white woman, you could come here and get resources and what have you to do your research on hate crimes. And even once you got here, you were influenced by hearing James Loewen directly. I'm going to assume Sundown Town, since that's the work that you cited in the book, but he wrote other things too.
Yes.
But his work, Sundown Town, so that kind of shifted your focus. So then you had vocabulary to discuss these small, exclusive white enclaves. Am I kind of accurately paraphrasing what you told us?
Yes, I think I just applied for a PhD program, right? And yes, in the broadest sense, I wanted to study some type of racism and hate crimes related research. And because of the way graduate school is set up in the US, there was funding available by teaching. And so I used my German skills and taught initially in the German department to pave my way and to pay my graduate education. And then, identified other sources of research. But I'm just saying that generally PhD programs in the humanities were slightly more available in the US than they were in Germany at the time when I was looking to pursue my degree. The rest of it was all accurate.
Strive for accuracy. Thank you kindly. What language did James Loewen, who is a white man, he passed away right in, I think, 2020, right at the beginning of the COVID-19 pandemic. What vocabulary did he supply you with specifically?
Well, primarily the white logic behind sundown towns, and the way it was in plain sight yet hidden everywhere. So I just reached out to him, became one of his mentees for a while. I think the key back then, when was that, in 2013 or something, was the whole environment about sundown towns and how it came to be and how it was done and all that stuff was mind-boggling. And he's just a really fun guy. He was a fun guy to be around and talk about these kinds of uncomfortable conversations. He was one of the few that you meet where it's like, yeah, it's not always comfortable, but necessary. So it's comfortable because of that. He was that kind of guy. He was a good dude.
That's even that, I think, is fascinating, that a white woman born in Germany can become a mentee for James Loewen. Like, wow, that. And then they come and tell me about, we got patriarchy, and it, get out of here. Anyway, what I guess you said, so the logic of these sundown towns, which I don't know. I mean, I don't know if it's mind-boggling. It's just, well, it is something. Did you?
Is a better word.
I'm sure. And in fact, I say that frequently. Did you have the the phrase sundown town? Did you use that before? Did you know that before, or was that something that he introduced you to, that phrasing?
No, that was his introduction when he was part of a Howard Zinn lecture series when he came to campus, and he gave a talk on sundown towns. Yeah, that's how he exposed everyone in a former sundown town to what it is like and how you can try to trace it. And I guess I was one of the few who jumped onto that, and I was like, yep, I'll do it. When can I start? And when you look at the entries on the sundown town websites, I did a whole chunk of those.
Oh, wow. That's fascinating. I read the entry for Whitestown. I've read a few of them because I mentioned this book about once per week, although I don't think James Loewen would have had me as a mentee, but I mentioned this book about once per week because there'll be so many incidents that pop up. Recently, there was a black female pregnant, like her water broke and everything. So she goes to the hospital. This is in Crown Point, Indiana. And I said, ooh, it's really any city in Indiana. If it's not Indianapolis, I just automatically assume this is probably sundown town. So I go check. Yep, Crown Point, Indiana, no Negras. And so I read, and I said, that's important because if I am pregnant, if I'm, my partner's pregnant or what have you, and we live near Crown Point, like you were saying, like, ooh, we see the exit for Crown. They're like, okay, now we know if you go into labor, no way are we going to get any sort of medical assistance in Crown Point. So we will have to, other means. Same thing probably for Whitestown, maybe for the whole state of Indiana. It might be dicey. I'm not sure. But or I guess before I get to the next term, we read that book in our book club, so we were with it for a long time. And one of the things that I have found is that people classified as white, you, many others, one of the ways that you all deliberately practice racism to keep non-white people confused, not using the most accurate terms. White privilege, massive. This is not privilege. We are talking about terrorism, white supremacy, racism, not privilege. But it's and a lot of time it's pussyfooting and minimizing the abuse and terrorism that white people deliberately dole out to non-white people all over the world. And sundown towns, that's one. I said, man, because it's not really the terrorism and violence that upholds all of this. Getting children to go in. What are you doing in this town? Get out of here. All of that is terrorism. We should come up with terms that reflect that. I have been using, I don't say sundown towns, I say racially restricted regions. That is much more, in my view, much more accurate to what's happening. Sundown town doesn't even really tell you what's happening. You would have to know, like, oh, okay, they got a... Let's call this what it is. It's way too much pussyfooting the violence of white people. Called it, and that's explicitly racially restricted regions. These are places where, whoa, white people have said, unless you are white, you are prohibited. What do you think, I guess, about the logic? Do you think that term more accurately describes what's happening in these locations?
I think that's a great way of unmasking what sundown town means. Absolutely. And I agree with you. My book that is based on the dissertation, I think, is a little more explicit in that kind of language. I talk about, first of all, the book title itself, right? Geography of Hate already gives a different ring to those things. But I talk about white spatial desires and white spatial manifestations, which gets at the racially restricted regions, similar to the racially restricted covenants that have been in place and still are in many places in Indiana too, right? So yes, it's definitely unmasking what Sundown Town means. Absolutely.
If folks have better terms, more accurate, let me know. But it's lots of, like Jim Crow is another one. I never use that. What are we talking about? Birds, ducks? What? This is people being lynched and castrated. Call that what it is. Jim, come on. Segregation. There's tons of terms like that. And I point out, they don't say white privilege when they're talking about concentration camps. And they shouldn't. I just point that out. They don't say, I've never heard anyone. Have you ever heard anyone say the concentration camp, say that's white privilege?
No.
Me either. Any hoodles. One more term from James Loewen, because he uses the term throughout the book, and it bothered me. Like, that was one, if I had been cool with James Loewen, maybe if I had been a white dude or white woman born in Germany or wherever, I could have been a cool mentee as well. But I would have said, Brother James, race relations. What do you mean? Because you use that term as well, and you don't have it in quotes from anybody. So to you, what do you mean when you use the term race relations?
Great question. I would say that it is the relationship between individuals or communities of different ethno-racial groups. That would be the first thing that comes to mind right now. But I assume you've been debating and nibbling over that word for quite some time, so I'm pretty sure you've come up with a word or description that is less, what did you call it, pudding?
That's one of the terms, euphemisms, where white people are just lying, not speaking directly about how they practice racism. James Loewen uses that term throughout the Sundown Town book, and it's really the same thing I said with Sundown Towns. Like, if we're talking about terrorism, killing, sometimes purging entire towns of black people, that is not race relations. That is making it seem like we got a couple of families and they have little spats from time to time, and then they, like, that's not what we're talking about at all. We're talking about total domination. Like, there are no examples of black people saying, hey, we're driving all of the white people out today at 6 p.m. There are no examples of that. It's time, we can't even count how many times this happens with white people. That is so unbalanced in terms of the power dynamic. Race relations is not getting at it at all. Like, white terrorism, system of white supremacy, like, just make that explicit, because it's lots of ways that white people, they'll talk about this as though this is just, just people just not getting along and just having a little disagreement from time, little flare-ups from time to time. That's not what this is. Like, that's not what this is at all. I feel like it's so deliberately deceptive, and especially in a book like Sundown Towns, like, Jesus Christ, like, this is not just, you get a friendly warning if you should stumble in town at 6 p.m., maybe even at 3 p.m., you might die and suffer in the process. That's not race relations, in my view. Like, even once you say relations between people or individuals of different communities, even, hey, the book makes it plain, as does Elliot Jaspin, if you are a victim of white supremacy, you don't have a community. You are subject to the white community. And white, he said 260 times, they go to the so-called black community and say, excuse me, niggers, you're going to have 5 minutes to leave. Maybe less. Now beat it. That's not a community. If white people can come and tell you, beat it, and you got to go, you don't have a community. That's not race relations. This is just white domination. Am I being logical?
Absolutely. I hear you on that.
trying to make sense. Wow, let's see. All right, getting to the mapping whiteness. And she already kind of explained, yes, she could have stayed in Germany and studied white supremacy, but funding opportunities, she got to hang out with James Loewen, lots of motivating factors. I guess, one, before I get to the audience, why was your dissertation that she's now updated, book, all that great stuff, but why was the dissertation titled Mapping Whiteness, Uncovering the Legacy of All White Towns in Indiana? Mapping Whiteness, what were you getting at?
Because that's what I tried to do, right? I tried to map and make visible white spaces and the white inhabitants in those spaces that acted on their white desires and actively constructed their environment as all white. And so I tried to unearth some of the ways in which white Hoosiers or white Indianans physically manifested their white desires in public, by demarcating certain sections in the town as neighborhood of colors, with like street names, or designating the city pool as like whites only leisure spaces, right? Or as you just indicated, sometimes they use the mere power of their words by encouraging or threatening the people of color to leave town. So I think trying to be succinct and both at the most basic level, it maps and makes visible white spaces.
Brilliant. And active efforts of people classified as white to construct these all white spaces. Very important. Who was the intended audience for Mapping Whiteness? Like when you're constructing this project, your dissertation, is this just for academic audiences? Did you think eventually, hey, maybe, just regular folks out in Indiana, what have you, might read and learn something about all this?
That's a good question. That has maybe a two-folded answer, because I was planning to call my dissertation already something along the lines of Geography of Hate. But my committee actually challenged me on hate being too strong of a word to describe those 1,000 insidious acts of bigotry and discrimination that characterize these everyday encounters between white Hoosiers and people of color in small town Indiana, right? But so that's why I shied away from calling it the Geography of Hate in the dissertation, because ultimately I wanted to get my degree and my committee was the one signing off on it, right? But I also needed to, quote unquote, save it for the book that I was planning to and actually ended up writing, because it might reach the audience that I wanted to reach. I guess it's a little more catchy than Mapping Whiteness. I don't know. You can tell me which one you find more appealing, quote unquote, obviously, because they do the same thing, right? But the dissertation was paving my way for the books that are not just academic. And I think in the book, so thanks for reading the dissertation, but in the book I try to break it down in very simple terms and invite readers to even take a look at their own communities. And I'm trying to showcase how these kinds of reflections, acknowledgments of that exclusive past can take place based on the practices and attitudes that I described and unearthed in the book or dissertation, for that matter. So no, it's not for the academic audience, because the academic audience can't help us admit that this has happened in their respective communities, right? It can't happen to acknowledge what's happened in the past and trying to foster more acceptance going forward. So I was hoping it would be adopted in local libraries, historical societies, and so on and so forth, museums, you name it. But it's definitely a public history, if that makes sense.
Wow. Thank you for the detail there. Based on the response you said for your dissertation, they told you, and this is at Purdue where you're doing your dissertation?
Correct.
Okay. So she's at Purdue University, go Boilermakers, and she's going to do hate. That's going to be used in the title, where she eventually gets to geography of hate. But they say, whoa, that's too strong. Whoa. How many non-white people were on your dissertation committee?
How many non-white people?
Yes, ma'am.
One.
And how many white people?
3.
Oh, man. It's kind of outnumbered. Okay, we got it. That's great. Got to be careful. And she said, hey, I'm just trying to get my degree. Not going to grapple with them. I'll get my degree, and then I'll save some for the book, so it'll be greater access for all. That is fascinating. I guess one of the, and kind of again, I think you did a great job explaining the title and what you're working at for this project and studying the geography of white supremacy racism in the state of Indiana. The term that I saw kind of early on in the text that helps describe this willful effort, even in my definition, dedication. This, I feel like this, your entire work here is evidence of not white ignorance, willful, deliberate, white dedication to the system of white supremacy racism. That is the construction of these white enclaves and no nigras and all of that, and even everything generations afterwards, how we absolve the white people of doing all of this. I don't even remember how it got like we never even had no nigras, did we? Yeah, we did work with the Underground Railroad. We did do that. Yeah, we got all of that. All of that is willful. It's just different elements, different components of the same thing. But the term white habitus, I thought that was very important. You borrowed that from Edward Bonilla Silva, his concept. How does that apply to these racially restricted enclaves of Indiana?
Yes, white habitus. I mean, I guess it is what Indiana towns feel like. That's, I mean, I'm thankful to Bonilla Silva, obviously, for this concept, because again, it gave us language to understand this socialization process that's going on, and the consequences thereof. When you meet white Hoosier students in your classrooms and they tell you that Purdue is such a diverse university, even though it's a PWI, and you're just like, where are they coming from? And I think the white habitus explains what those students, how their views growing up have been shaped by this white environment, creating this white culture of solidarity. I guess that's why I used the concept to describe what Indiana small towns can feel like. Does that answer the question?
For sure. I highlighted the section when you first used this term in your dissertation. This is on page 29, kind of middle of the page, second paragraph, I think, where you write, it delineates how they think, talking about white people, how they think, feel, and act to identify the deep cultural conditioning that reproduces and legitimizes social formations. It uncovers the consequences of the white habitus of Indiana, a concept coined by political sociologist Eduardo Bonilla Silva. Bonilla Silva expanded Bordeaux's concept to emphasize the racial aspects, defining it as racialized, uninterrupted socialization process that conditions and creates whites' racial tastes, perceptions, feelings, and emotions, and their views on racial matters. He identifies one of the key consequences of whites' segregated life as the promotion of a sense of group belonging, a white culture of solidarity, and negative views about non-whites. That's how Ms. Pérez can get shot on sight. The small town culture is the U.S. Midwest delineated in this project, captures the white habitus and its consequences. I would even say, just for the context of this discussion, I submit the shooting death of Ms. Pérez. That is the consequence of the white habitus. I've said consistently, if she had been white, she would still be alive. He would not have shot her. It would not, oh my goodness, they're coming to give. Am I interpreting accurately, or do you have a different perspective about that?
No, I agree wholeheartedly on, I think, all fronts. Definitely one of the legacies of these all-white environments, which Whitestown has been for a long time. Yes, there is a good chance that she would still be alive had she been a white woman.
Super sad. Shot through the door. When you are talking about your conversations with these folks, now you said for this research project that you spoke to a lot of these folks via phone, so you didn't have to, I guess, go in person.
No, actually, just the one. Actually, it was a coincidence that the most uncomfortable interview was a phone interview, and maybe that was the reason why, because it preserves a certain level of anonymity. Actually, all the other interviews were in person. So maybe I should have clarified that in the beginning. Sorry for interrupting.
But strive for accuracy. Thank you. That's why I said I thought I was reading like it seemed like she was in person, but thank you. So, okay, so I guess the one time on the phone, I guess they got a little snippy, maybe because they were on the phone, so they felt a little emboldened, maybe. The rest of the time you were in person talking to these folks about the history of these all-white towns and all the rest of it in Indiana. I thought this was important, and that I already asked if you are classified as white, because I do think that's important. And anytime someone's writing about racism, I always think, is a white person writing this? Is a non-white person? If we can't see them, if it's a book or something, a dissertation, whatever it is, I always think that's important. And especially if it's a white person, yes, you're in such a position of power, like there should be some sort of acknowledgement around all that. So I thought this was super important. Our guest, Ph.D. Jennifer Sdunzik, forgive my pronunciation, she writes, this is on page 46, kind of midpoint. She's telling about the influence of James Loewen, Sundown Towns. She says, early that semester, I had given a talk in the local community on the experiences of the Iranian community in Greater Lafayette, deriving from the ethnographic project for a cultural anthropology class. My co-presenter, a U.S. American of color, and I addressed, among other aspects, the local misperceptions of all Iranians are terrorists and resulting mistreatments of the Iranian community. Post-presentation conversations with the elderly white audience revealed that they were more comfortable with me, the white presenter, in sharing slightly insensitive and culturally inappropriate remarks about fellow international community members in the area. And I even have to pause because she is an international member of the so-called community. Like, why would they feel comfortable? Like, aren't you one of the ones that should be booted? Like, you should be in alligator Alcatraz. No, she's white. But she wasn't even, she's white. Very important. Continuing. Though initially befuddled about the interactions, I don't know why she would be befuddled. They're mind-boggling. She had said that. I don't know. I'll pause there. What did you find befuddling about these interactions?
The level of outspokenness, the level of insensitivity, because as you can tell, with my accent, you know that I belong to the community that you are obviously insulting, like in terms of the international community, the non-American community. So I think that level of comfort amongst that white audience with sharing their thoughts and perceptions about fellow members of my community was befuddling, I think.
I mean, I guess, let me ask, do you think what was happening, they say, hey, I'm white, I am racist, I assume that she is white, and she is also racist. Do you think that's what was happening?
I don't think they perceive themselves or their comments as racist or racially insensitive or inappropriate, whatever you want to call it, right? So I don't think there was a bonding moment for them of like, oh, I found another fellow racist who's a little bit younger, so we can bond on that. But it's possible. I can't deny that. I don't know. I would assume the level of ignorance in identifying their comments as insensitive or inappropriate to be more along the lines, but it could certainly be that they were like, she looks like me, she must be thinking like me. Let's talk to her instead.
It's, I guess for one, I have to go back. She quotes Dr. Joe Fegan in her book. I said I get excited anytime we have guests on the program where they name a whole lot of people who've been guests on our program. Really, that means I should be really thorough in those interviews. Now, Dr. Joe Fegan, Two-Faced Racism, he says one of the big ways white people practice racism, they lie. They know you are not. We got the laughing. We've got that worldwide. White people laughing at things that are not really funny. Even it's no racist joke, but they're still giggling. He says, Dr. Joe Fegan, he says, hey, man, white people know you're not supposed to say racist jokes. You can't really say Negra out publicly at this point. You'll get in trouble. I suspect that might be true in Germany as well. You're supposed to at least pretend that you are not racist. You wait until you are in the backstage exclusive white company, and then, hey, let her rip. Any racist jokes you got and all the rest of the good stuff, let it fly. That right there, I think, is, and even what you described You said they didn't stand up in front of the whole group when you had your victim, non-white person with you. They waited. They backstage. It's just us white people. Did you read that book, Two-Faced Racism, Joe Fegan?
I don't think I've read Two-Faced Racism.
It's one of the best. Leslie Pica, Joe Fegan, Squiggers. Oh, he's got a whole section on racist jokes. Anyway, but he says white people, they're not ignorant. They wait for situations like that when the non-white people are no longer present. Now they can be more truthful in expressing their racist views, which is exactly what happened here. They waited for the non-white presenter to leave. Now it's just you. And again, this has nothing to do with geography. We talk about that all the time. They don't delineate. She didn't tell us, our guest, she didn't say that she was white German. She just said she was white. We've never had anyone come on the program and tell us that they were Australian white or South African white. We've had people from those parts of the world. They don't say that. White. They don't break that up. It doesn't really matter. White people might squabble about that, but at the end of the day, white is white is white. And that's what they showed. Even they know she wasn't pointing at that. That's irrelevant. And in fact, the people that they're complaining about, these are non-white people. Is that true? The people that they were coming to backstage, all white environment, the people that they were talking to you about, these were non-white people. Is that true?
I believe that Iranians in U.S. society are frequently classified as non-white. Nowadays, in particular, phenotypically and how they identify might differ from how U.S. society identifies them. Yes, I think that's true. My co-presenter was still there. It was just the conversations, the small post-presentation conversations that we had with smaller groups, right? So it wasn't that, let the let the person of color leave the room and then we like proclaim loudly. It was like, the little hallway conversations that you have while you're wrapping up everything. And it was the conversations that happened with me. So this passage that you quoted from the dissertation is the reflections on those personal interactions that I had afterwards, not including anything that happened with my co-presenter at that time. Just since you appreciate when I correct the record.
Oh, for sure, the laughter again. But that's what Joe Fegan calls backstage. They're skilled enough, intelligent enough, the white people. They don't have to necessarily wait for the non-white person to leave, but they can wait till they're out of earshot, because you said smaller groups. That's what he calls the backstage. And now I can speak more freely about my racism and disparage people that I say are not white. And absolutely, white people do the classifying, so we can change it up as we go, and maybe tomorrow we'll change our mind. You even have that term that I think is so tacky, honorary white, and then tomorrow we might say Iranians are honorary white. We'll have to see how we feel. We'll see how you behave, but we'll get back to you. But we do the classifying, and right now we say you're not white, so we'll wait till you leave, and then we'll make all our comments about you and, other non-white people that whatever. I didn't even finish the whole or the next portion, because it continues. You say, I am perceived as white in this society and in Germany. I don't know. We already went over. That's so important. Have you, in anywhere in your travels in the known universe, to your knowledge, have you ever been perceived, treated as not white?
If it came to a racial classification, I don't think so. Absolutely not.
Very important for me. One, you were born in Germany. Again, they've had a few racial kerfuffles there, once or twice, I think.
Absolutely.
But more importantly, this is a global system. So it's not that you're perceived as white here. It's the known universe. I keep on. Elon Musk, man, they got the space stations. If you hopped on one of those space stations, you would still be classified as a white woman and get all the goodies and power associated with that. So yeah, I don't know why that's a part of the confusion too. There's a super resistance or there's a need, I guess, by white people to just locate racism just in the South or just Mississippi or what have you, global. So there's nowhere to run, folks, at all. Our guess would be white. Pick a continent, she would still be white and in charge. We would be in trouble. She continues, I'm perceived as white. This comes with responsibilities and opportunities. The encounters at this talk early in my graduate career made me realize that my whiteness trumped my citizenship status and language abilities deficiencies. Absolutely. Whereas these are not my only identities, they are the most prominent ones in the discussion of belonging unfolding in this dissertation. I tested this theory in other instances and noted a difference in ways I was being treated compared to fellow international community members of color. Historian Paul Spickard explains the emotional preferences of many Americans for white immigrants. President Trump just said this. He just said we don't need any more of them old trashy Somalian African. They're trash and their country's trash. Why can't we get the white South Africans, the Afrikaners now? We don't want the white South Africans. Why can't we get them, the Nordics, the Scandinavians, and Denmark? Why can't we get the good white people to come on? He just said. It's not funny, but. Woo! Man, that's what I mean. Like, this is not accidental. This is not white ignorance. And so much of it is white people just continue to say and do the exact same things over and over. This is what the Klan in Indiana was saying 100 years ago. The nativist sentiment, we don't want none of these dark people, and we don't want none of these non-white people. The exact same. It continues, excuse. Lost my place. Non-white people coming in, blah, blah, blah. The most prominent historian, White Republic. Oh, I can stop right there. What were some of the ways that you were treated differently, besides the one that you already told us? What were some of the ways that you were treated differently from some of the other non-white presenters that you noted?
I can't give you an example right now. What I was referring to, this is like a little too long ago that I don't know what theory I was referring to, like the examples that made me say that just because it's been a little while ago that I tested that theory. So, but there are plenty. I mean, simply the fact that my racial identity allowed me to speak to all these people. But that again is related to my research and not to the international people of color. There are some private incidents that I don't want to share right now that have to do with Border Patrol the first time when President Trump was in power. But we don't have to go into that, but I know that there were more than the ones that I don't want to share right now, but I'm not able to give you another example right now.
Fascinating. She knows there were lots of ways that I was treated better as a white person, even though white person not even born on this continent, this hemisphere, I was treated better than the non-white people that she was with. Wow, boy, I mean, wow, that is terrifying. I can only imagine it. Let your imagination run wild at Border Patrol. I mean, Jesus Christ, that is, wow. Life flashed before your eyes. Let's see, I'm skipping forward a little bit, but even the whole time, Miss Pérez, non-white, there you go, what it's like to be treated, non-white person, and you're not born here, Maria Florinda Ríos Pérez. There you go. She wasn't even at Border Patrol. But I mentioned that term, white habitus. This is a little bit further down in your dissertation. This is on page 115. You write, historians of the state of Indiana, agree with Lydia's interpretation. Pioneer historian of African Americans in Indiana, Emma Lou Thornbrough, describes the prevailing attitude in Indiana as neither pro-slavery nor anti-slavery, but as anti-Negro. Oh, what a great phrase, attributing it to the competition in the labor market and the overall antipathy towards black, even just the overall antipathy towards blacks. Ugh. In his most recent account on Indiana, James H. Madison, former Cow's guest, notes overshadowing the feeble anti-slavery sentiment was strong race prejudice. Darlene Clark Hine notes white Hoosiers resented the new black arrivals. They steadfastly believed this to be a white man's country and fought to preserve Indiana as a white man's state. That's make it plain. There's several times in here where you have quotes that are just so direct and to the point. Another one, it's a little bit further down on page 129. You write, though I attempt to focus on the black experience, what is revealed is a blanket of white hostility and animosity towards black Hoosiers. On a county level, white Hoosiers successfully send the message that this is white territory and white property where blacks are simply out of place. What follows is the visualization of how Indiana counties invoked whiteness, white supremacy, in every sphere of life. Whoa, that is heavy. I guess I should, that's what I mean, all areas of people activity. That gets to the word dedicated that I have in my definition. But that is a lot. Did the people in your dissertation, did they give pushback? Say, whoa. White people did not come here and say Indiana is a white man's state and then set about to invoke white power in every sphere of Indiana life. That is a lie, and did they give pushback on all that?
No, because they weren't the ones reading my dissertation. Do you know what I mean? I had interview protocols that didn't contain this kind of language. The write-up followed way after collecting and analyzing the interview data, trying to make sense of the different elements that had been shared. So the pushback to the kinds of language or quotes that you just read, I didn't receive from them.
Wow. Do you think you have enough evidence in your project that if someone were to question or they were to come because they got all the DEI purges and such, even, you were talking about having this book in a library to say, oh my God, you have, besmirched the great Hoosier state say that that's not true. You know, there's no evidence to say that white people deliberately set out to make Indiana a white-only state, to keep black people out and to make them feel totally unwelcome, send messages out so that they know they are not welcome here, that's not true. Do you feel like you have enough evidence you could refute that?
Oh, yes.
Quickly. Wow. Okay.
I mean, as I said, you don't have to read the whole dissertation to see the evidence in there. The book is a little shorter and slightly more digestible. It has the same kind of language, but it contains the plethora of evidence. And I think everyone who knows a little bit of Indiana history, they would fall short of pushing back, given the second constitution that openly banned black folks from settling in their midst. I mean, how much more evidence do you need, right? To say it, like to be able to counteract their rebuttal of this is not true. You don't have to give them all the evidence there is, but yes, there's plenty of evidence from the different decades and centuries that we could pick from. So the white supremacist logic that I tried to unearth, you can own it, acknowledge it, live with it, try to make things better, but you can't. You can no longer deny it, given that the book is out, the dissertation is out, and so many other works along the same lines are out there and are coming out that uncover the erasure, the silence, the selective memory making and history writing over the past decades and so on. So yes, there's plenty of evidence. We just need all the hands to write it, put it together, put it out there, read it. But yes, long answer, short answer, yes.
I knew Oregon had that in their state constitution. No black people, you can't be here. I think you get whipped. It's like 50 lashes. You come to the state of Oregon, and I did not know Indiana also had this in their state constitution. Still learning. I learned as well, you included in one of the footnotes that Indiana did pass anti-lynching legislation, but this was not out of concern for black people, that apparently, I guess, white people were lynched for certain crimes or in certain instances in Indiana, and so to stop white people from being subject to lynching, they passed anti-lynching legislation, not to help out black people. Did I read the footnote correctly?
Yes, absolutely.
Fascinating. There's so many just wow and this would be another one in terms of Indiana being constructed as a white man, white woman state, white person's land, but also in terms of what does it mean to be classified as white. There's so many moments in your dissertation book research that I think just really get to the heart of white identity. Just what does it mean? White culture. What does it mean to function, exist as a person classified as white? This is on page 139. You write, besides condoning extra-legal vigilante efforts, Indiana's culture also reflected whiteness around the turn of the century. A good example is provided by one of the state-funded university's yearbooks. Purdue's 1902 debris features the Southern Club. Membership was exclusive and based on the following criteria. 1, must be white. And they have white in all capital letters. That's the only word. Must be is then white, all caps. Must live south of the Ohio River. must have witnessed at least one lynching and must understand the various mechanisms of the so-called blind tiger. That year, the club held at least 21 members. Committee on Lynching. Leader of the Whitecaps. It's like one of those Klan terrorist vigilante groups. And official nigger lyncher were among the officer positions in the club. Although it appears to have been a prank club, it reflects attitudes held at the university and in Indiana society. Brilliant passage. Did you found all of this just digging through the Purdue libraries and their old yearbooks and such from the early 1900s?
Correct. Wow. It takes, as I said, people on all levels have been trying to erase, hide, be quiet, silent about those attitudes, so that they have been hidden for quite too long. But it's in the archives. It's there. It just takes a while to undig the few traces that haven't been erased yet.
Wow. To the researcher go the spoils. This is the sort of thing that I say it reveals so much about white culture. Why she can say something like, hey, Indiana, this is deliberate dedication to creating white people's enclave. Come Hoosier State, it's about white people. It has nothing to do with black people. Why you can make a statement like this. And I look at these, and one, I think this is important because so frequently I hear that racism, this is just dumb white people. This is just ignorant white people who are uneducated. They're barbarians. They've got no refinement. They've dropped out of school. They're illiterate. They got 1-2. That's how I'll hear racism explained. This is at Purdue University. These are not stupid white people. They do not just let anybody into college any era. So these are not stupid white people. And then even they have criteria for joining the club. Beyond, importantly, got to be white. But you have to have witnessed a lynching, and then the names of their officers, I guess this is a joke, even that, if this is a racist joke, wow, the names: Committee on Lynching, Official Nigger Lyncher. This right here is telling me, hey, we find enjoyment, necessity, because it's a requirement of the club. You have to have seen at least one lynching or you can't even join the club. It is a necessity and an enjoyment to practice violence. And really, lynchings, that's violence specifically against black males. That's what it suggests to me, that, hey, a big part of white identity, you are supposed to enjoy the necessity of committing violence against black males. That's how I'm processing. How did you process these titles and official nigger lyncher and committee on lynching? Even to join the club, you got to be white, but you have to have seen a lynching to join the club. How did you process this?
I think your way of processing is spot on, and you see that in the section. I didn't need to provide any interpretation of the language. It was so outspoken that literally the quote spoke for itself. And the fact that it went through university approval to be printed as such, to have a club running as such, says a lot about the society in which Purdue University students flourished.
Flourished. That enjoyment of violence. We spoke about that with Dr. Joe Fegan in detail because I told you in Two-Faced Racism, he has a whole chapter about racist jokes. He said this is one of the big things white people do in the backstage. There's no non-white people around, and he has his white students write down racist jokes that they hear, and they do the same thing, deconstruct, and so many of them, it's violence, and it's violence specifically against black people. Not Iranians or Mexicans. It'll be a few every now, but overwhelmingly it is violence against black people. And that is something to be enjoyed, laughed at. We talked about that it's in his book. He wrote about it. We talked about it in detail. Those racist jokes are so important. You write this a little bit down. All of this is white culture. And even, I keep relating it back, Miss Pérez. This is how she ends up. This is the product of white culture and looking forward, really, to committing violence against non-white people, and particularly in these white enclaves where you have transgressed, but this is white people's land. You're not even supposed to be here. We just said, send it back to Guatemala, wherever you're supposed to be at. Send the black people back too. You write, though disturbing, the article make sure I get the whole report in. Wow. This is Carlisle, the scene of a fierce race riot. This is September 17, 1904. Carlisle is a small town with less than 1,000 inhabitants, located in Sullivan County. Since it's a brief paragraph article, the entirety of the article follows. Carlisle, Indiana, September 13. Jasper Hammond, colored, while resisting arrest Monday afternoon, was shot and seriously wounded by Constable T.E. Johnson. Hammond was trying to renew a quarrel with other Negroes. Last night, a mob gathered and drove all resident Negroes out of town. Race feeling is intense, and it is feared that Negroes having homes here will be compelled to leave. Hammond was taken to Sullivan Jail for safekeeping when threats of lynching were made. The mob last night visited the home of every Negro family. Every house except one, occupied by an old family, was deserted. These people were not molested. What? But doors and windows in the other houses were demolished. No further trouble is expected unless the Negro laborers make an effort to return to Carlisle. Woo. Okay, so that's all quoted. Though disturbing, the article discloses 4 points relevant to the larger argument of my dissertation. First, blacks settled in Indiana's small towns and villages. Secondly, even small towns like Carlisle, of which Indiana has plenty, drove out their minuscule minority populations, re-establishing the all-white nature of their communities. Thirdly, white Hoosiers displayed the same mob mentality as is often exclusively attributed to the South. Hence, these sentiments are part of the cultures of exclusion characteristics of Midwestern small towns. And lastly, Carlisle residents allegedly spared one black family while demolishing all other black property. That particular family might have acquired the token black status in the community, something that she talks about repeatedly in the dissertation. And, oh, we're not racist. See, we didn't, we love them. The Taylors, they've been here forever. Like, get out of here. But I thought this was also super important. And once again, what does it mean to be white anywhere in the world? This is not relegated to the South, and even in areas where you say it's not very many black people in Carlisle. They drove them out anyway. You said that's not even an anomaly where it would be a very tiny population of black people, and even they get the boot, and it might not even be that they made a transgression, someone raped a white woman. Maybe not. Either way, you got 5 minutes to get out of here. All 12 of you are, whatever the small number of you it is. Again, I keep saying this sentiment is exactly the same as what happened with Miss Pérez. Back to these small towns. When it's like a small number of black people and they give them the boot, like the situation in Carlisle, do you find that there's some sort of justification, or is it frequently like it doesn't even seem like there's good reasoning to give them the boot?
I think, to quote another scholar, Annalisa Cox, she coined the term odd Midwestern racism that I think is quite appropriate to answer this question, because like Carlisle and other communities that I discuss in the dissertation and the book, it doesn't require a whole lot of black folks in town to feel that sense of entitlement about these being their white spaces. A few families were enough. Sometimes there were none, and they wanted to keep it that way, so they put some rules in place. I think I have a section where I speculate that there were black folks in the past in that community because they had ordinances that kept the public pool as all white. And they claimed that the family that had moved in the 50s were the first black family moving into this community. And I was just like, how do you have this ordinance if this indeed was the first family, unless they weren't the first? But if there were any before, we can speculate that there were, but it weren't many. So it certainly reflects this odd Midwestern racism that sometimes, or in most cases, even a small percentile of the community's population, small, like less than 1%, suffices to have this active manifestation of white desires and driving out folks. And you mentioned Jasmine. He detailed it a lot, sometimes for alleged reasons, no reasons whatsoever. And I think in my book, I showed a lot of these no reasons or alleged reasons as well that resulted in driving people out, keeping people out, threatening people to stay away, and so on.
When white people, some of these times here where they make an allegation that a black dude, a burly Negro, has done something to a white woman, or the black laborers are coming in as scabs, to maybe compete with white dudes for jobs or something of that nature, they'll say they are afraid. They got these strange Negras, like a raping black male is on the loose, but they'll say they are afraid. Kurt Anderson, he said, I was afraid. Pérez came, and I didn't know if she was some Latin drug runner or whatever, but I was afraid. What do you make of white people in such a powerful position as yourself? What do you make of white people continually saying that they are afraid of non-white people?
Nonsense. I mean, that's what it trickles down to, right? They have been so entitled and empowered that they think the world belongs to them and them only, and they use their own created laws, trying to abuse power beyond that, like to go scot-free for eradicating an entire family. I don't even, as I said, nonsense is my short answer to this. I mean, white people wrote these laws that protect them, right? And so we could also go back to the white habitus again, right? That they have never been around non-white folks. And so that's why they are so afraid of a tiny 5 feet woman. Because it could become, I don't know what they're thinking. But that's what we read here and there and all the time of why they are so scared of melanin in somebody else's skin. But yeah, I guess it's also getting late over here. So my one word answer stays nonsense.
Right on. It's I guess close to 11 in her time, Germany, closing in on 1 for me. I guess before we let you enjoy the rest of your evening, she had so many details in her text. The section where, I guess this is a little bit late, or I guess if I could get too quick before you depart us, that one with Elliot Jaspin, where he talks, this is on 161, and Jaspin, he asks about this sudden drop in the black population in Morgan County. He says they lost 92.5% of their black population in a pretty short time period, about 30 years. You write, though, this white man in Indiana, he negates Jaspin's assumption of a racial cleansing in Morgan County, even though the data supports this. Robbins elaborated on the exclusionary nature towards blacks in the state. White citizens here, as in most other Indiana counties, supported the long-standing U.S. practices of their racial superiority and the segregation of non-whites until very recent years. Through much of its history, Indiana created successfully a social, economic, and political atmosphere that discouraged the immigration of non-white residents. Direct quote. Here, Robbins asserts the culture of exclusion as a fundamental characteristic of Indiana, but noting the structural institution and discursive barriers that pushed racial and ethnic minorities to the margins of Hoosier society, but at the same time saying, hey, we didn't have no purge of black people here. Like, man, that's sort of the lying. At the same time, where I'd say it's white people, it's not that they're ignorant about racism. They lie. And James Loewen pointed this out as well, where white people have a long history of lying about these purges of black people. And, hey, how did this town get no black people here? Like, that doesn't make it. Whoa. We are not racist. We didn't do nothing to the black people. Like, that's such a common way that white people practice racism. But I thought this was so important because, one, he is very informed. And in fact, he asserts we did a lot of very deliberate things to keep black people out of this part of Indiana once we got them, even though he's saying we didn't do the purge. Like, man, like that almost makes me want to get Elliot Jaspin back on the program, but just the fundamental nature of really, and it's excluding black people specifically. It's not even all non-white people at this point, being a fundamental component of Indiana culture. Again, I just thought that was, and the lying. I guess if since we only have 2 left, the lying about all of this, you talk about that as erasure, and I think it's so important because I think that's another part of the pussyfooting, to say that it's shading or minimizing in other ways. It's lying because so many of these white people are knowledgeable. It's if they didn't participate in keeping these black people out or driving them out or making it unwelcome for black people, their parents did, their aunts, grandparents, uncles, cousins, brothers, all of that, and they actively are upholding it now. the deception in all of this. Like I said, use different terms in the text, but I think that's an important aspect of maintaining the system of white supremacy.
Hold on. Can you please repeat the question? I lost you somewhere.
Yes, ma'am. The lying, how white people lie about how these events have taken place, how these all-white enclaves have ended up like this, whether it's lying that they don't know how it happened, or lying that even something ever happened. Like, hey, the black people, they just didn't want to live here. They don't like the temperature. They don't like the climate. They just, they wanted to go to Chicago. Come on, the lying.
Yes. I mean, that's definitely one of the active mechanisms, right? The hush-hush, the silence about these white actions and white acts that resulted in these all-white environments. And I think this, black people don't want to live here is a very common excuse. I think even James Loewen mentioned that a couple of times in his book, and I encountered these excuses in the field plenty, and in the archives for that matter. It's not just nowadays, it's the written word in the newspapers throughout the decades underlines that mentality, that attitude, that lying, the hush-hush.
You included a racist joke from Penny about the reason that they have so few black people in town. The few black people that are there, they were going to Chicago. They weren't even trying to get there, and their car broke down. And she giggled about that. Said, "Oh, we got a racist." Did you interpret that as a racist joke? This from Penny.
Yes.
I did as well. I thought same thing. And it even suggesting black people just couldn't have a perfectly functioning car, that's how they got here. They got some old jalopy and broke down, and they never, I guess they couldn't afford to get it repaired either. And so they didn't even make it to Chicago. Did you hear any other racist jokes in doing your research and talking to these white people?
I thought I included quite a few examples in the dissertation. Maybe it was the book, but yes, absolutely. Let me think. But there are quite a few examples in the dissertation, I'm pretty certain. Some folks pretended that there is this one black that they weren't able to talk to. Then other stereotypes in terms of, I should have read my dissertation before coming on the air with you to not misquote them, but it was the Cadillac driving loafer mentality that they implied in their jokes. So yes, these jokes are out there. Along the token black lines, along the gang member coming from Chicago and Gary and bringing all the crime with them mentality to the community. But I thought they are in the dissertation / book. I can send you an email with some of these exact quotes if you really care to read the verbatim responses that I received. But yes, the short answer is yes, obviously. People don't shy away from including this kind of language to a white person.
Once you gave your answer there, I do remember reading that about the Cadillac and the lazy loafing black people and blah blah. I remember that. I guess I didn't register that as a joke. I thought they were just being serious. So I guess I get whatever. I guess I missed that one. Ha ha. My sense of humor was off on that, but I do remember that one specifically. I just didn't think that was. I thought they were being serious. But all right, that was one that I missed. My bad. I'll go back and read it again. Maybe I'll I'll get my giggle out this time around. Anywho, did you know about Jim Jones and his start in Indiana before we let you go? The People's Temple, all of the mass murder, don't drink the Kool-Aid down in Guyana, him starting in Indiana?
No, I did not. While I was in the line to come on air, the little bits and pieces started. So I was, because I don't know, he was somewhere in Indiana or something. I was like, okay, let me listen to what this guy is doing. Maybe I have to do more research on this person. But it ended before. So I didn't even know what he was doing before we ended up on the air. So, and then when you mentioned that, I was like, I'm not quite sure that I want to research this right now, but sure. No, I had no clue.
I just learned recently myself, but yes, that, and in fact, knowing it ahead of reading your dissertation when you talked about the number of racists in Indiana who they just wanted to colonize the black people, like get them out of here, send them to, Liberia or someplace, free black people or whatever, just send them someplace. Jim Jones, he did take the black people away. He took like almost 900 of them to South America and then killed them. It gave me a totally different thought process. Like I said, one, his dad being a Klan member in Indiana, and then he started his whole congregation in Indiana, and they trekked to California, and then went all the way down to South America. Even the Nazi Germany connection on Jonestown, because they called all that the White Knight, and he was really in Adolf Hitler and all the rest of it. Anyway, that's a whole nother story, massive story. But yes, the Indiana connection on Jonestown, just reading in her dissertation about apparently lots of white people in Indiana were thinking about colonizing black people. Jim Jones didn't talk it, he did it. We have been chatting it up, the dissertation Mapping Whiteness, Uncovering the Legacy of All White Towns in Indiana. Our guest joining us live from Germany, Dr. Jennifer Sdunzik. Struggling with my pronunciation. She has impeccable English. I'm struggling to even do one word. Thank you kindly for sharing a bit of your late night with us. I learned so much reading your dissertation. I hope, if anything, people have a much better understanding. The shooting of Maria Florinda Ríos Pérez, that is why we did the program today, early in everything. That is why hopefully this will be a little bit of context for that really disgusting murder. But thank you so much again. I learned a ton. Enjoy the rest of your evening. German evening. Enjoy the rest of your evening over there.
Thank you. Thank you for having me and shedding some more light on this history. Always helps, right? As I said, we just gotta get it out there. So thanks for having me, and I guess you enjoy the rest of your day.
Yes. We're barely a little bit after 1 p.m. So yes, we have lots of Tuesday left to enjoy, but get some rest. And thank you again. I learned a ton about Indiana. I will be applying it moving forward. Thank you so much, and enjoy your evening.
All righty. Have a good one. Bye-bye.
For sure. Take care. Context of White Supremacy, doing early work. See there, it's she just said not barely 1 p.m. here Pacific Coast time. We normally broadcast 5 p.m. Pacific, 8 p.m. Eastern, so we're about 4 hours earlier than we would normally be on. I'm no fan of those early morning programs, and this would count because we start at 11 a.m. So I'm no fan of those. Not that I can't get up early in the morning, but it's just it throws off my whole. I'd much rather have like the whole day where I can prep, get my questions together, and just kind of take it easy, as opposed to, oh my goodness, got to be first thing in the morning. We're on there like, oh man, I am no fan of the start the day broadcast. I'm not a morning person, so it kind of takes me a while to. I'm like one of those old vehicles. Like you can't just hop in and just ride around the corner like whoa. You got to warm things up, take it easy. That is me. I can't just start talking first thing in the morning, then talking about something serious. Like, man, you got to give me, I can't even say 5 minutes. You have to give me like 5 hours. That's why we start at 8 p.m. Eastern, 5 p.m. Pacific. That way I've had a good amount of time to, all right. Yeah, ready to talk. And I can do my prep. Like I said, I get my questions and everything together and pow. Okay. Anyway. We will be here minimum Thursday, 8 p.m. Eastern, 5 p.m. Pacific, neutralizing workplace racism, and then Friday, Catherine Massey Book Club. If I could say one thing, this broadcast today, we read James Loewen, Racist Suspect, Sundown Towns, Hidden Dimension of Segregation in America Should Be Racism, and then Jonestown, a CIA medical experiment, Michael Mayers. We read that last year. Whew. That book has so much about the Klan in Indiana and all of that starting in Indiana, but way before they got to Guyana. And then James Loewen, like I said, I didn't even know she did a lot of the research and put the notes on the website for the Sundown Town, James Loewen's website. But I reference that book about once per week, sometimes more frequently depending on what subject matter we're talking about. But it comes up so frequently. I told you, Crown Point, we just talked about that. Pregnant black female, she can't get help going into labor. Oh, she's in a racially restricted region. Non-white female gets murdered knocking on the wrong door. She's in a racially restricted region that's named Whitestown, no less. Boone County. But that's how we ended up here for today, and specifically with the Catherine Massey Book Club. Like, man, being able to learn a little bit about the place where you live or a place where you have a geographic connection to, learn about the history of white supremacy racism in that area. Like, if you have a connection to Indiana, you should know, like, wow, it was in the state constitution, no niggers. She said it was a fundamental part of Indiana identity, white identity. We are anti-Negro. We're not pro-slavery. We're not anti-slavery. We anti-Negro. And we're going to construct our town so that they know we are anti-Negro. Hoosier that. Now, you're going to watch the college playoffs. Think about that. When the University of Indiana goes out to play, number 1 ranked team in the playoff, think about that when they suit up. And look in the crowd when they show. They might have some dark people on the field getting brain damage, I'm sure. Look who's in the crowd. We'll take a quick break, see if folks have any thoughts. We're on so early. If you holiday season and you don't have to be at work. We have educators, so for some people, hey, the quarter or the semester done. University of Washington, the quarter is done Friday for us. And for some people, they don't have to go all the way to the last day. They are done. Do they Christmas shopping? Get they spiked eggnog or whatever else they're going to do. But so if you got time off, hey, you can tune in. We might even have some more of these irregular time programs before 2025 wraps up. You can be in early, get a question in, all that good stuff. But anyway, we'll take a quick break. Be right back before we wrap up. Context of White Supremacy, doing counter-racist duty early in the, it was AM. I guess we broadcasted so long we went into the PM. But Context of White Supremacy, will be right back. Stay tuned.
The late 1960s, after the death of Martin Luther King and the riots and the upheavals and all like this, and black people with their fists in the air and all like that, and trying to stumble and fumble and find their way and get focus. The white supremacists made a blueprint and put it into action, and that is, I'm going to have these people so confused, they don't even know what they started out to do. And by the late 1970s, they had just about completed it. And we've been on that ever since. And you mentioned something very important. They are more comfortable than ever. But see, it's like making gorillas comfortable in a cage, or monkeys, or pandas. You still got them in a cage, but they're comfortable. See, so give him some bling-bling. It's like giving an animal a brand new car and training the animal to ride up and down the street in it. And then you stand back and point at the animal. Like one white man said in the late 1950s. He said he doesn't care what kind of car a Negro has. He said he's still a nigger. And when he rides by in a shiny car, to him, it's just a monkey in a car. White people built a car, put a monkey in it, trained the monkey to drive the car, so now you're looking at a monkey in a car. See, but black people don't see themselves that way. But this is how the white supremacists see us, and they are the ones who run our business. And we have to know that when they look at us, that's what they see. That's what they see. That's what they see. And at a subliminal level, what they see begins to spill over into our brains so that we, at a subliminal level, see each other that way. And indirectly see ourselves that way.
Context of white supremacy. Woo, man. Hopefully worthy of folks. Early Tuesday, our guest joining us live from Germany, Jennifer Sdunzik Ph.D. Mapping Whiteness, a little bit of Indiana state history again here Thursday, 8 p.m. Eastern, 5 p.m. Pacific, same as Friday. Neutralizing Workplace Racism on Thursday, and the Catherine Massey Book Club on Friday. Our broadcast for today. One, if folks have not been keeping up with that case of Miss Pérez, there's so many cases of non-white people being shot, even sometimes white people shooting other white people. But there's so many cases of non-white people being shot, going to wrong address or pulling up, even sometimes going to the correct address or whatever the case is, and getting shot outside someone's door. They open up the door and shoot and kill the person or what have you. Really, if you have young drivers, young people, tell them to be careful. I mean, try to double, maybe even triple check the address for the person if you're going to visit them, if it's the first time. See if you can get a picture so you know what their property looks like and everything, some descriptors so you'll know what to look for. Try to minimize the likelihood of you making a mistake that could be fatal, because you have folks who are armed, and especially if you live in an area where they don't have no whole lot of dark people, or you're going someplace where they don't have a whole lot of dark people. In fact, that might be enough right there. You find out you're going to visit somebody, they live in a racially restrictive region. Oh, no. Nope. I can't even come visit, because even if I do get into your area, let's say I get to your house so we can kick it, hang out, have a great time, all that, I got to leave. I mess around and leave, and it gets dark early now, too. I mess around and leave at 4:30. Oh, no, 4:30 p.m. or a.m. I'm in trouble. What are you doing over here? You don't know nobody over here. You've been looting, raping, pillaging. Come on. That we have to meet someplace else if we're going to, have contact. I thought it was important. One is so many portions in her project where she talks about the practice of white supremacy, racism. She wrote in all spheres, areas of people activity, where she said this is fundamental to what it means to be white, what it means to be a Hoosier. That's the nickname for the state of Indiana. But this is, the foundation of what we are about. Mistreating black people. Man, come on. That's what I mean. Like, and hey, you can't be ignorant about all of this. There are expectations with being classified as white. Really, it's work to do. This place didn't get all white by accident. All hands on deck to make sure it stays that way down through the generations. We might have to go and boot some niggers out. Don't know. And you might be expected to lie about the fact that we had to boot some niggers out. 10 years from now, 50 years from now, who knows? But hey, you're not supposed to be ignorant about all this as a white person. She also, I thought it was important, our guest, born in Germany, she said that she was perceived as white in the U.S. No, you are white all over the world, and I can't stress enough, it's a global system. It's not like we just got racism here. Like I said, I even thought, like, that's strange. Like, why would you come to the U.S. to study racism? Like, what spot is better than Germany? I was thinking Dr. Welsing did it the other way. Why? But again, I have been told Adolf and them, they studied how white people practiced racism against us in the U.S. in the 1930s. See how they whipped Jesse Owens' head. So, I don't know. White people share information on the plantation. We read Edward Baptist, The Half Has Never Been Told. White people swap information on the plantation. So, hey, you got race soldiers from Alabama. Maybe they go to Berlin, too. Do a little studying. Anyway, but she's white anywhere in the known universe. You don't just become classified as white or even find out that you're white when you come to the U.S. Come on, that's good. In the land of Adolf, Joseph Goebbels, come on. The racist jokes I thought were really important as well because there were so many. She has pictures, not just talking about those yearbooks, where the club names were Captain Lynch and all the rest of this, and you had to have seen a lynching to be a member. All of that violence, that is white identity, and really, you can't be ignorant. If you've seen at least one lynching, they said at least one lynching, you're not ignorant. You are expected to know what racism, white supremacy is. Gotta be white. You can't even be ignorant about that. You gotta know that you're white to join the group. No, they're gonna tell all kinds of nigger jokes at these little clubs at Purdue. See? Let's see. I'd be curious what sort of commentary or feedback she gets from black people who've read her book, if they do at all, just to see. Maybe perhaps not her dissertation, but the book for sure. I thought it was significant. She said the committee for her dissertation, it was 4 people, 3 white, 1 non-white. That and then end up with problems where they, hey, you can't say hate, and all the difficulty in what you can say and can't say in your dissertation. I am not surprised, and in fact, that's probably what the dissertation committee looks like at many colleges and universities, regardless of the state. In fact, might be less than 1 non-white person. Let's see. I think they assumed that she was racist when she talked about being white with her non-white presenter, and they would kind of pull her to the side or wait till the event was, or at least wait till her non-white presenter was no longer in earshot, and then they get into all their racist commentary. They assume she is racist. Why would I, if I'm going to say my racist comments, I would have waited for she and the colored boy to leave if I, I know they're going to out me and try and DEI me and all the rest of it, cancel me. No, you're white. As a matter of fact, you're German. Matter of fact, she said, they told her, isn't that Hitler dude cool? I didn't think that was no joke either. I thought they were being serious because she said they would try and distract her and want to talk about that. Isn't that Hitler cool? You know about the Lebensborn, the Wellborn? You got any paraphernalia left? Like, wait a minute. That's not what I can. But I thought that was not no joke, like, ha ha, trying to make funny, like, oh yeah, I've heard that one before. I thought that was totally serious. Jim Jones, he said, man, I admire me some Hitler. I got all kinds of books on Hitler. That's what they said he had down in Guyana. Remember, we read that. Catherine Massey Book Club. Let's see. Anything else I want to get in before? She has a episode in her dissertation where she talks about it was a so-called biracial female, and she was with a black dude. And she would get castigated and called names because people would see her in public. They thought she was a white woman, and so they would come up and be like, you know better than be with a nigger. No, you should be ashamed of yourself. It's not funny, but just reminding you can't be ignorant about racism because white people will let you know. If she had been an authentic white woman, she would have been in all kinds of trouble, and she would have known, like, I am messing up. Like, I am not supposed to be with Leroy. Woo! I'm gonna have to make better choices. Let's see. Oh man, I forgot. If I'd had like extra 5 minutes, one of the points in the book or dissertation, she says that sometimes James Loewen talked about how they'll have a really small number of black people in a town. Like she mentioned, it might be, this is an old black family, and they worked for powerful white people, so whatever, you can stay. Or I don't know, you did a white person a favor, so you all can stay. Fine, you'll be our token niggers, whatever. Sometimes these small numbers, they'll be like servants for a white family. Sometimes they'll be prisoners. Sometimes it's Devante, black child that's been adopted by white people. Devante. We were once a family. We read that in the Catherine Massey Book Club too. But man, how do you construct an entire white enclave and everything about this environment is anti-Negro and then adopt a black child? What? That's total Devante, because we read that. That's them. Get a black child and go to Oregon. South Washington State. Ain't no niggers there either. Like, what? What? Why would you do that? Why can't you get a white child? Why would you adopt? Even if it's just, I want a child and we just want to help someone, and you got all these little niggers in foster care and social services and nobody's there to take care of them. Throw away children. We'll take one. We want to be parents. Whoa. How many black people live in Whitestown where you are? Well, that's beside the point. Love is love. And that ain't, because it ain't just that. It ain't no black people. Like, you got an explicitly anti-black town. That, I don't know if you need to adopt little Leroy Jr. Like, wait a minute. I was going to ask about that if we had a little bit more time, but hey, what can you do? Jonestown, lot to cover. Anyway, we'll be here Thursday. Hopefully constructive for folks tuning in, worthy of your time and energy. Let's see. We will be here Thursday, 8 p.m. Eastern, 5 p.m. Pacific, normal broadcast time, neutralizing workplace racism, and then the book club. sobriety would be best, especially this time of year. The sobriety checkpoints, I don't know if they'll be out quite yet, but I mean, the days are ticking down. I'd say you may have 2 weeks. Man, if it's the same thing I said before, if you got young drivers, they just got their license or what have you, or haven't been driving too long, only a year or so, maybe a couple years, remind them. There will likely be sobriety checkpoints. You do not want to be out driving, especially late at night, under the influence. Oh man, you are asking for all kinds of trouble. So, and that's reefer, any other drugs, sobriety would be best under conditions of white supremacy. You might end up driving through Whitestown. Oh, the Mad Dog 2020 ain't gonna help you get through there. Creator, we ask that you help us remain patient with other victims of white supremacy. We ask that you remind us to maximize our time and energy to replace white supremacy with justice immediately. Remind us, refrain from the production of throwaway offspring to be adopted by whites in a racially restricted region. That is Devontae. It has been time. Replace white supremacy with justice immediately. Cows signing out. Thanks all for tuning in.
Nigga, you so brainwashed. I'm a victim, brother. Problem. You're a victim. I'm a victim of 400 years of conditioning. Shut up. The man has programmed my conditioning. Even my conditioning has been conditioned.